You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
Coaches Nation, hey, it's Daniel here. I'm here with Dr. Sheri Fluellen, and I'm Daniel Fernandes, and we are going to have an amazing podcast for you today, all about challenging clients. And challenging clients is something that many coaches, A, struggle with, or B, don't actually do much, because there could be a variety of reasons. Maybe you are a little bit not confident in challenging that client. Maybe that client is like better than you at this one thing, so you don't know how to challenge. Maybe you're not good at challenging in your own life, so you need to step up your skill set and challenge. But whatever the reason that you challenge or don't challenge in your life, today's podcast is going to be amazing because we're going to talk about all the different components and ways to challenge your clients, how to do it, why it's important, and different ways that we've challenged our clients. So you're going to get a lot about it. You're going to probably get 5 or 10 tips on how to challenge in different ways. I bet you at least 2 or 3 of those you haven't thought of or haven't done recently enough. And we're going to be pulling from our clients that we have either failed to challenge or challenged really well. So,
and quite frankly, our own experience, because there have been plenty of times when I've been challenged well, and I'm not in the mind space to be challenged. So like, I think we can self-reflect a little bit on what's worked for us.
Yeah. So this is going to be a really exciting podcast. If you haven't yet joined our school community, this is an amazing community for coaches. We are moving our entire community off of Facebook. We have so many members there, but we want to take advantage of the features of school, and Facebook is really changing. So we're going to be talking about that more in our content on school, but like why Facebook is changing and why we're changing as a result. But if you want to be part of an amazing community of coaches that really care to serve and want to make an impact and want to help other coaches succeed collaboratively, then a school is an amazing community that you need to consider joining. In the meantime, Dr. Sheri, are you excited for this podcast? You muted yourself. You're so excited you pressed mute by accident.
I pressed mute. I'm so excited because I even can reflect back on yesterday. I had a discovery session with a couple, and the whole thing was she was being like, she is at an emotional overwhelmed state, but she's challenging herself and she's not sure how she's going to manage. And I had both her and her husband on, and so I was getting to work with both of them, and then he challenged me about challenging her. Like it was really fascinating and interesting.
I want to know what happened. Like can you give a little bit of details, like how that dynamic happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So the short version where she's at is she's an investor, real estate investor, and she had another business and she's jumping into this. She has a history of having a very low confidence based on kind of how she was raised. And she has been seeing a therapist for years and years and years and years. And the challenge they're at is that she says, she acknowledges she has more tools in her tool belt to help with anxiety, to help with boundaries with her relationship with her parents and these sorts of things, but she's still not at a place emotionally where she wants to be. And so she's feeling overwhelmed, even though she continually adds things to her plate. So she's like, I'm challenging myself. Am I challenging myself too much? Like, can I take this? And then husband then also reiterated, like she's already been doing these things and she's made some progress, some growth, but not as much. So how is coaching going to be any different? Like, how would your process help her actually move further than she has?
He challenged you right at the beginning.
He did. Well, this was towards the end. And so, of course, he asks me this question and, we're already slightly over time. And I'm like thinking to myself, how am I going to like instill confidence super quickly? And so, but this is why, from my perspective, this is why clients want to work with me, and probably most coaches, is that they want to be challenged, meaning they want to grow. And their ability to challenge themselves and their ability to grow at the rate and at the level they want is insufficient to what they want. they know they can do more. They know, and they're looking for that support. So our role in our job, I think, is to challenge most of the time. I mean, I think there are some situations where it's not about challenge, but I think when I think about the growth and the arc of a coaching journey, which is exactly what this podcast is about, the coach's journey. It's about challenging ourselves and our clients.
Yeah, I love that, Sheri. And I think challenge sometimes as a word, sometimes has a negative connotation. Sometimes it gets a bad rap. Oh, he challenged me. Oh, it was like, this is so challenging. But in this context, what we're talking about today, if we talk about like what we mean by challenge. Challenge doesn't mean like threatening. It means having your clients see something they might not have wanted to see, or maybe it means pushing back on a client. Maybe it means helping them see a path forward that they couldn't really, they didn't want to commit to, or helping them, reminding them that they're capable of more.
Yeah.
Challenging is like kind of like asking people to step up in a way they might not have stepped up if you hadn't said that, right? Or if you hadn't done that. That's kind of what I'm thinking as a definition.
Agreed. But I will say, Daniel, that when you said this isn't about like threatening, what I've experienced though is sometimes my clients or potential clients are challenging themselves appropriately enough but they actually trigger that threatening like response in them because they don't have necessarily the mindset or the tools that can undergird their own level of challenging. So they're challenging themselves and then like kind of regretting it because now they
themselves. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm certainly not trying to trigger the fight or flight response in my clients, but they're pretty good at doing it to themselves.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I've noticed, I've had quite a few sessions with female entrepreneurs recently, and the theme is overwhelm because of their own level of kind of challenging themselves. And so it's like taking that fight or flight that they've created and figuring out how to deactivate that or harness that in a way that's going to work for them instead of kind of, working against them.
Yeah, but his question to you is, how is that going to be any different with you? Challenge is part of the equation, but I can see how using a coach would actually be completely different, especially if a coach is going to walk you through the step-by-step of what it is that you're creating and what you need to spend your time on and what you don't, and how to cut those things away and how to manage your time. These are things that, I would say most therapists aren't like, versed in time management specifically, but they can help you get to the place where you need to do time management. There's some therapists that do probably work in time management, but a time management piece is useful and more likely for a coach to be able to help with that. So I can totally see like a piece of that, but people think time management is a challenge where it's actually not time management, it's priority management and knowing what you want and all these things, right?
Yes.
So there's so much more to it, but part of it is the process you're going to take them through. Like if somebody asked me that question at the end of the session, I'd say like, well, let me ask you this question. How was this session different from everything else you've ever done?
That's a great question.
Them on their challenge, right? How did you handle it, Sheri?
How did I handle it? Well, honestly, what I explained is that, throwing a bunch of tools at a problem can be helpful. And I actually gave him kind of some examples from my own life about my own journey as becoming a mom and getting overwhelmed because of a perspective that I had of who I should be based on what my parents were. And so that part of this journey is her really solidifying and identifying who she wants to be. And how I talked about it is that she's measuring herself to her parents' ruler, and she needs to come up with her own measuring stick and what she's measuring herself against rather than taking somebody else's. And so I said, when you change your perspective and what you're measuring against, that's not just like a quantitative change, it's a qualitative change. And so that's kind of how I framed it.
I love that. And something we were talking about ahead of time is part of challenging is listening.
Yes.
Part of challenging is listening, because you can challenge all day long without listening and you're not really challenging, you're just spouting.
Yes. And I had this experience just a few days ago. I was a member kind of / facilitator, a co-facilitator of a mastermind. And in a traditional mastermind, what it is everybody has a chance. Most people have a chance to be on the hot seat. Like, what are you struggling with? And we share a little bit about what we're struggling with in our business. And then there's clarifying questions. And then there's people just, getting to offer their perspective or or they can challenge, or they, whatever it is, like everybody gets to participate in whatever makes sense. And there was one person that was participating by providing information to one of the other people. And they just went from listening to the problem to like kind of advising and like saying, well, did you think about this and this and this and this? And I was like, I remember thinking like there was a whole lot of questions and assumptions. Well, there's a whole lot of assumptions that happened that this person never really clarified or asked about or whatever. They just like, how do you know they haven't even tried that? Or that they haven't thought, like I just noticed that there was this huge leap, in thought process that happened with this other person. And they're not a coach. So I get that they don't have, they are literally a business owner that's participating in a mastermind. But so it was interesting seeing that dynamic play out because they weren't listening well enough to like ask the questions to fill in the gaps.
Which highlights actually the difference between a coach and I was gonna say a regular human, but coaches are regular humans. But a coach and a non-coach is the way that you listen and challenge. Because a coach's way of challenge is different from the general public's way of challenge.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.